Not good enough for President Obama. He wants to spend $6 trillion. So you don't have to be a math major and accountant to realize, we're not in total cutting anything. We're just trying to limit the rate of growth so that we can stabilize our debt to GDP ratio. We don't go totally bankrupt, so we don't hit another debt crisis. Another way of looking at this is 10-year spending. In the decade from 1993 to 2002, the federal government spent $17 trillion. Last 10 years, we spent $30. The argument moving forward is the House budget would propose spending $40 trillion over the next 10 years. Not good enough for Obama. He wants to spend $47 trillion. Again, when you've heard this draconian cut figure of $6 or $7 trillion, this is what they're talking about. Not real cuts, just reductions in the rate of growth and spending. Where do we spend our money? These are charts that show spending and deficits over the 4 fiscal years so far in the Obama administration, 2009, 10, 11, 12. We spent $14.1 trillion, and you can see where we spent it. Entitlements, $8.6 trillion, defense, $2.7 trillion, about 20% of the budget. Which, by the way, defense spending, kind of a top priority government. Interest on the debt, almost $1 trillion, other spending, almost $2 trillion. Of that spending, $5.1 trillion was borrowed. That is 36 cents of every dollar spent was borrowed and added to the backs of our kids and grandkids. I hear it all the time. Well, what caused deficits? Well, of course, it was Bush's tax cuts and Bush's war. Well, they contributed, but let's take a look at really how much they did contribute. Out of the $5,092 billion deficit over the last 4 years, the tax cuts for the rich, those making over $250,000, is $136 billion. Tax cuts for everybody else is $544 billion, for a total of about $660 billion. The war spending over 4 years was $611 billion. Again, it contributed, but it's not the main contributor. It's 25% of the total deficit spending. The tax cuts and the wars. The other 75%, $3,801 billion is other spending. We have a spending problem in this nation, not a taxing problem. President Obama's solution, tax the rich. Make those evil, money-grubbing people pay their fair share. Well, here's a fact. In 2007, which was the high water mark, the top 1% of all taxpayers paid 40.4% of the total income tax burden. So top 1%, 40.4%. The bottom 95% paid 39.6%. So is that sinking in? The top 1% in 2007, it's backed out a little bit, but the ratios are about the same. The top 1% paid more of the income tax burden than the bottom 95. Now, at some point in time, I think you're going to have to take a look at that honestly and go, it's getting close to their fair share. But President Obama's solution is, let's tax the rich. Well, how effective is that? Back in September 2011, at a fundraiser, there's no audio or video, but the White House actually put this on his website, his speech to a group of donors. He said that if Congress were to enact his Buffett principle, in principle, it would not only pay for his current jobs program, which is about a $200 billion program at the time, but it would also stabilize the debt deficit. Now, I would contend the President of the United States has a duty not to mislead the American public, so I knew that was a lie. So I did a graph. 1 year of the Buffett Rule raised $5 billion. That does not stabilize $1,090 billion deficit. It pays for 11 hours of spending. It doesn't work. A more robust proposal from the Democrats in the Senate would increase taxes to the Clinton rates of people making over $1 million. Those millionaires, those evil billionaires. Well, that would raise $16 million. You pay for less than 2 days worth of spending. Now, if you really want to do the full Monty here and increase taxes on people that they call millionaires but are making over $250,000, return those rates to the Clinton era, it would raise $34 billion. Now, this is the amount of revenue that Democrat Senator Patty Murray is willing to take the American economy off the fiscal cliff because of her demands for increasing taxes. The Democrats agree, let's not increase taxes on anybody else other than this group. Now, I would argue that one of the reasons we have greater income disparity is because businesses have been incentivized to report their income through individual taxes as LLCs and Subchapter S. So when you increase taxes by $34 billion on the productive sector on those small businesses, you are reducing their ability to invest in their business and create jobs. It would be a dumb thing to do. It would harm economic growth, and that is the number one component of the solution to our fiscal problems is economic growth. President Obama has this concept that the American economy is like a pie. And his solution is let's divvy up that pie. It's not divided fairly right now. Let's divvy up more fair. My solution, conservative solution, is let's grow the pie. Let's grow the economy. Let's make sure that everybody's piece of that pie is larger. That actually works. President Obama's approach is going to be more likely to shrink the size of the pie. It'll make rich people poorer, it'll make poor people poorer. Let's take a look at just one of the entitlements, the easy one to fix. Social Security, up until the year 2009, actually ran a cash surplus. It was invested supposedly in the trust fund. You know, this mythical thing that actually does exist is a file cabinet with U.S. government bonds. And I would argue that U.S. government bonds held in the hands of the federal government is the exact same thing as if you had $20, you spent it. By the way, this money's spent, it's gone. And you write yourself a note for $20, stuff in your pocket and go, I got $20. No, you don't. Nor does the federal government have $2.5 trillion in assets. They've got notes, bonds, that just like you, in order to get $20, you got to take that note out of your pocket and convince somebody to buy that as a promissory note to give you $20. That's the federal government's got to do. What's the prospect for Social Security? Well, we went cash negative in 2010 because of the very ill-conceived and unwise payroll tax holiday, which defunded America's retirement plan. I thought that was a pretty dumb thing to do. I didn't vote for it. So we went cash negative by $51 billion in 2010, $46 billion in 2011. And over the next 20 years, what you're looking at, according to Social Security trustees, is $5.1 trillion in total deficit spending. Doesn't work. My final slide, this isn't a financial metric, this is a societal metric. This is what you need to pay very close attention to. This is what we need to really take a look at if we're going to solve the problems. We need to understand them and look them squarely in the eye and understand that government maybe isn't particularly good at solving these problems, but this thing starts in 1940 in the out-of-wedlock birth rate, which is a very dangerous metric for society. I really do think the family is the foundational building block of any successful society. Out-of-wedlock birth rate back in 40 was 3.8%. By mid-60s, it had almost doubled to 6.9%. And Democratic Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan was alarmed. He talked and wrote a lot about this. So, with all the good intentions in the world to alleviate poverty, to cure this, we embarked on something called the war on poverty. We have spent $16 trillion trying to fight poverty over the last 50-some years. Has it worked? Have all those good intentions really panned out? Were we able to reduce poverty? No. Were we able to reduce out-of-wedlock birth rate? No, it's up to 41%. And I think Americans really need to honestly take a look at the effect, the unintended consequences, the results of all our good intentions, of all this government intrusion into our lives. I would argue that's the root cause of our problem. The size, the scope, all the rules, all the regulations, all the government's intrusion into our lives, and the resulting cost of government. And that's all I got. So thank you for listening. I don't know, do we have time for questions, Charlie? Or?
Two questions. Yeah.
Two questions. Anybody? Or not? Well, get out of the debate then. Thank you all for listening. Take care.